Welcome to GRE, from Warsaw, Poland to Warsaw, Indiana, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold, and you're listening to Get Rich Education. Earlier this month, CNBC reported that home prices have hit new highs again. Now, they're up just slightly year over year, though. The popular sentiment is that by now, people have gotten used to paying 7% or even more than 7% mortgage rates, and higher rates. That puts the squeeze on housing supply. I mean, gosh, within this era of already paltry supply, we're talking about direly few homes in some markets here. Nationally, new listings are down 25% from a year ago. All right, now that's all national stuff, but look, now just over half of the nation's 50 largest housing markets, and they're mostly in the Midwest and Northeast, they have either returned to their prior price peaks or they have set new all-time highs. Annual home prices are still weaker out west, but even some of the western markets that slumped, they're now seeing month-over-month gains. Yes, we're talking about gains now even in San Jose, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. Now, look, are starter homes a thing of the past? Some now think so with these higher prices. Just listen to this from an NAR survey. 40% of millennials who bought homes last year, they plan to stay in them 16 years or more. And for Gen Z, that number jumps up to 48%. Now, who knows if they'll really stay in those homes that long? But see, what's going on here is just affirmation that so many buyers don't plan to trade in their starter home for a move-up home. They got their starter homes when rates were low. Those starter homes are not coming onto the market. Potential sellers have ghosted the market, making for fewer listings. And those fewer listings, that's what's fueling the price growth. So yes, starter homes could largely be a thing of the past, but of course not completely. Now, just 2 weeks ago here on the show, Jim Rogers told us why long term, he thinks interest rates will go much higher, and opinions can be all over the place, so I don't want to get too bogged down in that. But shorter term, one prominent commentator, he is now emphatic that mortgage rates have hit their top. Like, for example, hit their top for perhaps this year and next year. Lawrence Yun, chief economist at the NAR, on the direction of mortgage rates, he says, quote, "This is the top. It will begin to move down." But Yoon also says if you're a U.S. home buyer waiting for a return to super low mortgage rates, don't hold your breath. The short-lived era of 3% interest rates for 30-year fixed mortgages, that is over, and they are unlikely to return anytime soon, perhaps for decades. He goes on to say that one can never truly predict the future, but I don't see mortgage rates returning back to the 3% range in the remainder of my lifetime. That is all of what Yoon said. Oh, okay, the remainder of Lawrence Yoon's lifetime? He looks pretty healthy. That might be 40 years, 40 plus years until we see rates that low again, according to him. Now, did you see this? We posted this in our Instagram stories as our curious article of the week. Last week, the Washington Post, get a hold of this title, they published an article and it was titled, "The housing market recession is already ending." My preeminent thought is, the housing market recession is already ending? That's a curious headline. What housing market recession? I don't get it. And the subtitle doesn't help. It's subtitled, "Last year's downturn in the housing market didn't last, even with higher interest rates. Now prices are stabilizing as supply chains have eased up." All right, well, even with actually reading the complete article, I don't know what they mean by a housing market recession last year. I guess that national home prices stopped appreciating last year and they just stabilized. But I don't know how in the heck you get a recession out of that. Maybe with low housing supply, there were fewer transactions and that was being considered a recession. Now look, I'm gonna posit something really unpopular here in today's climate, but I think that is a question that you really need to ask yourself today. And that is, did Jerome Powell just win? I told you it was unpopular. He's not a very well-liked person in a lot of circles. But with CPI inflation at 9% last year and 3% now, yet throughout this span, we had a few banks that broke, but no recession. Is it possible that Jerome Powell has engineered a soft landing? I've got more on that in a moment, but the actual person of one Donald John Trump made some quick remarks about the economy this month. Let's listen in.
We've never had an economy like we had just 3 years ago. It was unbelievable. And frankly, this economy is not doing well, but the reason it's doing okay is it's running on the fumes of what we built. But those fumes are running out, and they're running out fast. And it's not going to be a pretty picture.
Yeah, I don't know about that. When we look at the broader U.S. economy, let's get something more substantive. And speaking of people that aren't well liked, Jamie Dimon had some great perspective. I think you know that he's the billionaire business exec and the banker that's led J.P. Morgan Chase since 2005. To put it another way, this man runs the largest bank in America.
The other way around. America has the best hand ever dealt of any country on this planet today, ever. Okay? And Americans don't fully appreciate what I'm about to say. We have peaceful, wonderful neighbors in Canada and Mexico. We've got the biggest military barriers ever built called the Atlantic and the Pacific. We have all the food, water, and energy we will ever need. Okay? We have the best military on the planet, and we will for as long as we have the best economy. And if you're a liberal, listen closely to me in that one. Okay, because the Chinese would love to have our economy. We have the best universities on the planet. They're great ones elsewhere, but these are the best. We still educate, most of the kids who start businesses around the world. We have a rule of law, which is exceptional. If you don't believe me, and we talk about Britain, Brazil, Russia, India, Venezuela, Argentina, China, India. Believe me, it's not quite there. We have a magnificent work ethic. We have innovation from the core of our bones. You can ask anyone in this room, what can you do to be more productive? Ask your assistants, factory floors, we do it. It's not just the Steve Jobs, it's this broad depth. We're the widest and deepest financial markets the world's ever seen. Okay, and I just made a list of these things, and maybe I missed something. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And we have it today. Yes, we have problems. But when I hear people down, if you travel around the world, get an airplane, travel around the world and go to all these other countries and tell me what you think.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon really bringing up a lot of those geographic advantages like Peter Zion and I discuss in depth here. Dimon's remarks, they're not new remarks. Those weren't recent ones. And by the way, I don't really care for him calling out liberals. Just like labeling people conservatives. That's counterproductive. I like the quality of ideas. As soon as we start labeling things left or right, that quickly becomes more divisive than it does unifying. I don't do left-right politics. I do up-down. Up is integrity. The quality of your ideas, concepts, means for getting things done, and track record. That's what matters. But anyway, coming off Jamie Dimon waxing poetic with American optimism and exceptionalism, yeah, it is time to ask if the Fed is winning. And first, let's understand something fundamental. The fact that high inflation occurred for 2 years, that is irreparable. Let's not overlook that. Your Trader Joe's grocery store prices, they're not coming back down, even if the rate of inflation has slowed. That is a big fat L. That is a loss. It came from printing all those dollars to paper over the pandemic, which created the high inflation with everything from the Paycheck Protection Program to stimmy checks to the CARES Act. And yes, the executive branch created some of that too, but my point is, make the irresponsible people that don't have any savings feel some pain once in a while. If you just make money fall from the sky every time there's a crisis, then people are going to learn to not have any reserves or any cash flowing investments during the next crisis. Yes, supply chain constraints were part of the problem too, but since you tried to paper over the pain, see, that makes everyone feel the pain that's middle class or below. All right, but after that understanding, is Jerome Powell now winning by landing the inflation softly without crashing the economy and keeping GDP rising a little and keeping unemployment low. And see, even the Producers Price Index, that's forward-looking. That measures the change in selling prices of goods and services producers. That's falling outright, that leading indicator for consumer price inflation, and that's why inflation expectations are finally dropping. And no, that doesn't mean that I like the Fed or the system at all, but by now you've at least got to begin to wonder if the Fed can get their soft landing. They've dropped down from 30,000 foot cruising altitude. There's no turbulence, and they're below, call it 10,000 feet now. For the first time in 2 years, wages are finally rising faster than prices.
We at the Fed remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people.
Yes, sir, that is your job after all.